What's up everybody, back with another raid guide, and today we're taking a look at Mythic Prototype Pantheon. So let's hop into it. Now I'll be going over most of the new mechanics, how to deal with them, as well as some tips and tricks for your progression. I won't be covering all of the heroic mechanics unless they've been updated for Mythic, so if you're not up to date on how the fight works, feel free to check out my heroic guide. Now setup wise, we went with 2 tanks, 4 to 5 healers, and 13 to 14 DPS. We used 5 healers for our first kill, and we used 4 healers for our re-kill after the nerf. It made hitting all the push timings a bit easier, but I have workarounds if you don't want to 4 heal. Now as far as setup goes, double gateway helps a lot, but it's not mandatory, and I never thought I'd say this, but holy priests. Rocking the 1-min Guardian Spirit talent is very good for the seeds, and a few roars or wind rushes never hurt anyone. So what's new for the good old Pantheon on Mythic? Well, the Sire Denafrius Prototype Absolution is bringing back the Night Hunter mechanic, and hand in hand with that is the imprinted safeguards. So the imprinted safeguards protect the necrotic ritualists and the withering seeds, reducing damage and healing taken by 50%. And to remove these, players targeted by the Night Hunter mechanic needs to hit them with it. So 4 Night Hunters will spawn and target 4 players, creating a line between them, and after 9 seconds that Night Hunter will charge the player, dealing around 112k damage to players within 4 yards, and this damage is reduced for each player, seed or ritualist in the path of the Night Hunter charge. So like I said, the goal is to hit each seed and ritualist with these to remove their shields. Other than that, everything else is just scaled up heroic. Now how do we deal with the Night Hunters in the simplest way possible? Short answer, a weak aura. Cue the Pikachu. Withering seeds and ritualists will always spawn in line with these 4 marks. And this weak aura simply assigns 1 Night Hunter per mark, and it shows you which mark to go towards. The remaining task of actually running there, however, is in the hands of the players. So if possible, have a gateway going between triangle and star mark, as well as diamond and circle, so slow B classes can make it if they have to run far. One very important thing to do is to make sure everyone in the raid has this weak aura, that it is set up properly, and that everyone turns off Night Hunter in their boss mod, so DBM and bigwigs. Just uncheck both Night Hunter settings and you'll have a far better experience with the weak aura. Other than that, even when you hit a seed or a ritualist or both with the Night Hunter, the players targeted by it should pop a personal or health pot if they're low before it goes off, as it still slaps quite a bit. Worst case, you can assign a soak rotation for each line, but in my opinion that's overkill and it's far easier to just use a personal. Now other than that, like I said, it's mostly heroic, but everything is a lot more punishing, so for that reason it requires some extra attention. So you want to assign an interrupt rotation for both the Prototype of War and Renewal. None of them should ever get a cast off, but emphasis on War, as this fight is very healing intense, so getting tons of healing absorbs is pretty feels bad, man. Make sure to have a few range interrupts as backup, as there's a lot of running where melee might not be able to interrupt, like during Hand of Destruction for example. Next out, I want to talk about them seeds. Properly managing the seeds will greatly help you out, so my friendly neighborhood priest taught me how to utilize the seed. The general approach our healers had was to always heal up the seed near green mark instantly, second one on orange when there's around sub 10 sec left on the healing buff, and the third seed right before Hand of Destruction, and the last one right after Hand of Destruction. And you kinda just let the seed healing carry that part of the fight. Now on top of this, assign 1 healer to give the last seed a bit of love as their HP ticks down. So you want some trickle heals like Hots or Pally Beacon or something to just keep it afloat until you're ready to top it. Now apart from that, use things like Guardian Spirit or Cocoon when you're in a pinch if you need to catch up on seed healing or if there's a certain seed you're struggling with overall. So with that said, let's break down the fight a bit. Now for phase 1, the goal is to transition during the second set of ritualists. So on pull you want to tank boss around the green mark, and when you get your first ritualist you also get Night Hunter. Make sure to break all 4 shields, and then you want to split your DPS a bit. Now if possible you want range to slowly take care of the ritualists on diamond, circle and star, while melee and boss stays on top of green mark and cleaves that one down. Now there's no rush to finish the ritualist, you just need to die before you run out of space. So for example, we had 2 boomkins on star, Starfalling, 2 Affliction Warlocks that dotted all of them, and 1 Shadow Priest on Diamond ad and a Frost Mage on Orange. Now, as always, play around a bit until you find a split that works. Worst case, you might have to send an extra DPS to X or Y ad, but ideally, you want to send as few as possible so the rest can just smash boss. And these players needs to hold cooldowns and pop them on Ritualists. They don't need to die fast, but they do need to die. And due to the recent nerf, this strat actually requires more damage now in phase 1 and phase 2, due to bosses transitioning at 40% instead of 50%. Now, if you can't make the DPS check and pushing before the second Ritualist kills you, while you're DPSing them down evenly, you can instead nuke down duty to 40% while leaving war sub 45% or something. War naturally gets smacked more in phase 3 due to being interrupted, so having a tad more health on him can actually help keep it even in phase 3, and allows you to push phase 1 a bit faster since you don't care about having them even. So when the ads spawn, nuke him down as previously described. When duty flies up, pop roar or wind rush near where duty flies so DPS can cleave a bit and still hit duty. It's a lot of duty. If someone gets hit by a spear, you can use Blessing of Protection to break him out instead of nuking it down, but do try to not get speared. When you get your second set of Ritualists and Night Hunters, you can either assign players to soak him to reduce damage, or just have all of them break out the Ritualist as they count as players for the Night Hunters, so they will split their damage, which is what we did. But after that break, you ignore the Ritualist and you just burn the bosses. And you try to make sure they're close in HP when they reach 40%, unless you're lacking damage. At that point, just push that duty. And as soon as you transition into phase 2, you want to deal with the Death Touch players and have them run into the barriers and dispel them. And it's time for phase 2. Now the goal here is to transition if possible before the second Hand of Destruction. It's less impactful if you can't, but it's extremely nice not having to deal with it. So at the start of phase 2, we start around purple marker, mostly because renewal is hella annoying moving far. And if you want to minimax a bit, tank renewal slightly to the side of absolution and kind of facing away, and her Anima Storm spawn won't insta-hit melee. Doesn't always work, but not like there's anything else going on for tanks there. So when the seeds spawn, deal with them as the weakauras commands, and healers do that healy thing we all like to the seeds. Make sure to move the bosses if there's ever any animals marching near you, as they're also annoying as hell. And it's especially important to have some space between you and the old McDonald farm animals before Hand of Destruction. I promise you that people will just blindly run out of the hand and smack into a cow or something if you don't. Now on that note, we always moved boss towards a green mark or circle following a Hand of Destruction, or as we're running out of the Hand of Destruction. Unless there was a ton of animals over yonder, just have someone call before hand where you want bosses and raid to go, and make sure you spread and spread well for these sinful projections. To quote our healers, it doesn't matter how many healers you bring, if you eat sinful projections you're going to die, because the dot is real nasty, so do avoid getting hit. Then smack boss. Then it's just rinse repeat, try to nuke him down to 40% before the second Hand of Destruction. If you're having issues reaching this DPS check, you can nuke down absolution to 40% while leaving renewal at around sub 45%. As again, it's an interrupt target and it will naturally get smacked more in phase 3. Now for phase 3, where the fun starts. Goal is to kill boss before boss kills you. There's not really a big brain strat for this phase, as it kinda plays out like on Heroic plus Night Hunter, and you deal with it like you do in the previous phases. Night Hunters go where the weakauras commands, and you split DPS for the Ritualist, and the Withering Seeds and Necrotic Ritualist all spawn at the same time. And healers deal with the seeds in the same way as in phase 2, and if you have enough DPS you can skip the Hand of Destruction in this phase. And if that seems to be the case, you can be a bit more liberal with the seeds in phase 3, as you won't need them for the Hand of Destruction, but otherwise do keep them for that. Make sure you keep war interrupted at all time, and ideally renewal as well, because the raid damage amps up a ton in this phase, so messing up interrupts is a big no-no and will easily lead to someone dying. And lastly, make sure you DPS down all 4 as evenly as possible, and possibly drag a low boss out if needed. When one dies, you have 20 sec to kill the rest or it's GG. Always move bosses and raid if there's animals marching near you, and be liberal with externals, def cooldowns, and such, and help out soaking lines if possible to reduce raid damage. This phase is extremely hectic and there's a lot to deal with at the same time, but as long as interrupts are kept in check and you break shields on ritualists and seeds, everything else just pans out pretty fast. And we pop Bloodlust and second pot in phase 3 after the shields on ritualists and seeds are broken. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this fight on Mythic. If you have any questions at all about this encounter, hit me up in the comments or become a patron or Twitch sub and get access to the stanky Discord, where you can find raid weakauras, healing notes, and a ton of awesome people to help you out with progression. Don't forget the usual stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and ring that notification bell, it really helps me out. I'm also streaming all of our progression on Twitch, so make sure to check that out. It's on Thursdays and Sundays now. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.